Hello and welcome. This is the Goal is AFL podcast with me, Harry, and Caleb right up here. Thank you so much for joining us again. This is episode 3, and in an alternate universe, Brisbane has just won by 65 points against the Cats, and we've trounced them. We've looked amazing. We've looked like the reigning premiers. But in reality, our game has been washed out. As well as the Gold Coast game, unfortunately, has been washed out by Cyclone Alfred. And if you can kind of tell for those watching on YouTube, I have a very different kind of background because I am currently without power at my home. So I have relocated temporarily to be able to do this podcast with Caleb and wrap up opening round, which we will have some thoughts, some suggestions perhaps, and a little bit of a preview as to what is to come for the next round, which is going to be round 1. But first of all, Caleb, again, thank you so much for joining. How are you doing, mate?
Pleasure to be here. Yeah, good. Cyclone Alfred was predicted and it didn't happen. And then I'm like, what a waste of time. We're canceling all these events. How stupid is this? And then it moved, hit the Gold Coast pretty hard. And then you look like a fool for saying that sort of stuff. So, hopefully when we get to round 1, we can get a full launch of the AFL season with all the teams involved, and it'll be bloody exciting to watch. But yeah, just with the first 2 games of the season, it felt pretty anticlimactic. And opening round, is it something that we're going to keep in the years moving forward? That's what we're going to discuss here. So, Harry, let's just get straight into it.
Yeah, this is, I was sitting there on Thursday night and I was like, where's this rain? We could be playing right now. But obviously there's logistics in terms of having to bring the team and like the Geelong up, and players don't want to leave their house and such like that. Like, I totally understand. I was just a bit, in this kind of selfish mindset, just like, oh, we could be playing the game right now. But anyway, it is what it is. And then, of course, Saturday, which was a couple of days ago from where we're recording this, was absolutely hammered on the Gold Coast. So there's absolutely no way they could have played that game. So, it is what it is. This is a freak of nature. But yeah, I guess my initial take on opening round, if we're going to get into that as our first topic, is that for 24 rounds of the year, we predominantly, well, not when I say we, the AFL media and national media tends to focus on like Victorian teams. They tend to focus usually on how's Collingwood going, how's Carlton doing, because of course they have the most fans. The Vic bias narrative is somewhat real, and for some reason the AFL has decided to kind of shoehorn these opening round games where they play in interstate venues, which apparently aren't AFL states, even though Brisbane and Sydney have been powerhouses in the AFL for years now. So it just, to me, seems a bit odd to be able to, and we said this last year, it wasn't even like we're saying this because of the cyclone and anything like that. That's my take. I just think that it is a little bit heavy-handed. I think that you're going to have a better suggestion than I do, but I just think that the traditional round 1, you could even call it opening round 1, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just stop playing 4 games in weird times on 1 a day type of thing over the first week. It just is a little bit stupid. So what's your take?
Well, I think it's also important to remember that the NRL, which is the biggest competition to the AFL in this country in terms of a national audience, in the last 2 years has tried to expand its attention and its potential audience over into America as well. They've been doing the Las Vegas tour. And 2 years ago when they launched that, the AFL, I think, also saw that as an opportunity to try and push some more attention into Queensland and New South Wales, which are heavy NRL supporter base states. And by doing that, with no rugby league on in the area, people are frothing at the mouth to get to a stadium and enjoy some footy. And by having only AFL at the market's disposal, that was a potential lure for some maybe on the fence, or maybe just some rugby league fans that were looking for something different to do on a night out, and we're going to go to an AFL game. And I think like that makes sense to try and push into those markets. But I think what the AFL needs to remember, and what it has to its advantage compared to the NRL, is that it is the national game. The AFL has teams in all states around the country. We're about to have Tasmania enter into the comp, which is super exciting. And I think the concept of having an opening round, to me, makes sense logically, but it doesn't make sense in the sense that you're not including everyone within the national game. And I saw a clip circulating on social media the other day. It was a clip out from some radio show with Matthew Lloyd on it. And it was a quote directly from Michael Voss, the Carlton coach. And he was talking about how the potential solution for opening round is to have it launch all around the country, because you've got 2 teams in WA, you got 2 teams in South Australia, you got 2 teams in New South Wales, you got 2 teams in Queensland, and you've got a plethora of teams in Victoria that could, easily travel. Obviously, I personally would still love to see the opening game of the season be played at the MCG between Carlton and Richmond, which it has been historically, because that is the biggest, the 2 of the biggest teams in the competitions in terms of fans, and it's a great coliseum to open the competition with. So you could easily have the first Thursday night footy between Carlton and Richmond at the MCG, and then every other game that weekend is played outside of Victoria and is spreading the love of the national game. And I think Michael Voss is onto something there in terms of having a majority of the Victorian teams travel about, and we launch the season in what you could still call opening round if they want to stay with that branding. But I think that would be much more exciting if we have all the teams involved, as opposed to having a very small selection of teams in 2 states launch the competition.
Yeah.
So do you agree with that thought process?
I mean, I'm not really sold on always having the opening game be Carlton Richmond. I think that there should be, it should be on merit. And clearly, I've looked at the odds for the first game, and clearly Carlton is the favourite. They are literally like $1.04, like $1.04. Like, it's an insane lopsided game. It's going to be an insanely lopsided game, and I just think that there could be so many better games. I know the history is there. I'm not sold on it always being those teams just because it's always been those teams. Like, we could have had a Brisbane Sydney rematch type thing, or if you want to keep it at the MCG, like I don't know, just a Hawks Cats first game, something like that. Like, play it on the merits.
I can understand that. I always do like the idea of the premiers open the season as well.
Yeah, me too.
Which is kind of what they were going to do with the Lions and Geelong being the first game.
Yeah.
So if they wanted to do something like that and the first game not be in Melbourne, look, I don't think it's the end of the world, but I just think the MCG is an incredible venue to host the AFL, and the atmosphere when you get 80, 90,000 in there is just insane. So when you have so many months off in the off season and everyone's super keen to get back into the footy season, especially in Victoria, I think that makes a lot of sense from a financial and from a hype perspective. But yeah, I say if it doesn't have to necessarily be Richmond and Carlton, but I get what you're saying.
Well, anecdotally, how many kind of living in Queensland have a perspective of how many people do you know that would like pick and choose between AFL and NRL simply because of the availability of when it's on? Like, I don't know that many people that if there's a Dolphins game and a Lions game on at the same time, or a Broncos game, whatever it is, having to pick and choose between the two. They kind of either have one or the other. And I don't think that the Lions have been lacking for fans due to the popularity of the NRL. I think that they lacked fans because they were bad. Like, they've been selling out the stadium very regularly while there's been NRL games on at the exact same time. I don't think that this pretend war between the AFL and the NRL, that they have this rivalry, doesn't translate to fans. You know what I mean? Like, it's, to me, there's that childish type of, oh, AFL's better, oh, NRL's better, blah, blah, blah. Sure, there's some people online that like to discuss it, but I mean, can't you just have 2 sports coinciding at the same time? Like, I don't feel like it's much competition between the two.
I agree. And the AFL, in terms of fan engagement and total broadcast viewership, is definitely ahead of the NRL.
Yeah.
But are you familiar with the Barassi line in our country?
Yeah.
So, like, the Queensland and New South Wales have a much bigger strongholds on the NRL in terms of fans than the AFL does. So I can understand, like, for a lot of Queenslanders and for a lot of New South Welshmen, they might not care that much about the AFL comparatively speaking. just like the Victorians don't, besides the Melbourne Storm, don't really have any interest in the NRL.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not too sure. I don't have a full breakdown on these sort of analytics, but
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, I am of the opinion that we've got so much health in terms of the supporter base across the country that these things are more trivial nowadays than they were maybe 15, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah. Well, as you would expect, for opening round, AFL lived in Sydney this round, and we had 2 games happen. We had a game on Friday night, which was Sydney versus Hawthorn, and we had a game on Sunday afternoon, which was the GWS Giants versus Collingwood Magpies. And I'll chuck up the first result here, which was the Hawks defeating the Sydney Swans 96-76. Back and forth game.
This is a bloody exciting game.
It was an exciting game. It was a lot of people obviously tuned in. There were obviously a lot of people very excited. They wanted to see what was going on. So you can see that the want for AFL is there. People are definitely pretty keen on all of this, coming back with a vengeance. Like I imagine if we did play the Lions-Cats game, it would have just been a massive game, and obviously we probably would have both been there, and it was going to be an epic night. And I think that there was a little bit of rain around in this game, but we still got a very high-flying contest. What was your kind of initial thoughts of the match?
Well, I'll say I do want to cast our minds back to your prediction of the Hawks in our ladder predictions, and you weren't too hot on them.
I don't recall.
Yeah, and they have definitely picked up from where they left off at the end of last season.
One game.
They played some pretty fluid. I know, true. I definitely will agree with you when we talk about Collingwood and GWS. But I was pleasantly surprised by the opening game of the season. Hawthorn definitely have some pretty agile, exciting play.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Sydney actually played pretty decently for the most part throughout the main quarters, throughout the 4 quarters. But the big difference I feel like between these two teams is just like forward pressure. Hawks, when they got the ball down forward, definitely seemed a lot more threatening.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Sydney, every time they went forward, there was a little bit more uncertainty, a lot more drop marks. And obviously, even though the scoring shots between the two teams were relatively similar and it was only a 20-point margin, I was surprised by how much of a lack of cutting edge the Swans had in the moments that they really needed it. So, but overall, from a neutral's perspective, it was a really tight contest.
Mm-hmm.
Plenty of ground jewels that were exciting to watch, and I'm glad the Hawks got over the line, because now that the Swans have lost a grand final by a significant margin 2 times in recent memory, I've lost a lot of respect for them.
Yeah.
So I don't want them to do well, even though I know they probably will in the long run.
Yeah, I think they'll still be up there. Like, they still played very, very well. They had stretches, especially in the first couple quarters, but then Hawthorn just kind of ran away a little bit too much. Did you were you watching the 7 broadcast or the Fox broadcast? This is a big talking point for the AFL season.
If you're talking about the graphics on screen, like the scoreboard stuff, yes, I watched Channel 7.
Yeah, Channel 7.
And I actually really like the new broadcast package that Channel 7 have put together in terms of their scoreboard and all the way it comes out in the bottom of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
I did see screenshots of the Fox scoreboard, and to me, it's way too big. It's disgusting.
I mean, so 2025 has kind of been a turning point for broadcasts, and it's like Channel 7 now does not have the monopoly of commentary on primetime games like they did previously, and Fox now has exclusive rights for all Saturday games up until round 10. So basically Channel 7 used to have the commentary, and then Fox would just put their own bugs over the top of that broadcast and kind of give their own a little bit of a spin. They had one camera, they had a studio crew and all that sort of stuff for primetime games. But the Channel 7 and Fox have kind of split now, and they've both got different broadcast teams happening at the same time. So you've kind of got this war of like, oh, who am I going to pick? Who am I going to watch? And to me, I always just watch Fox because I have KO and I don't have a free-to-air sort of, aerial anymore. And obviously you can watch on 7+ and such. But I thought the Fox bug was fine. Honestly, like, people raged against it, but it's not designed for at home. You think about it, a lot of time when you go to a pub, it's usually on the Fox feed because they have an ESPN or they have, Foxtel. And you need a bug that is massive because a lot of the time the screens are not that big, and so people.
This is exactly what my dad said.
It's exactly the point, and I think that the graphics look good. I think that they really put a lot of effort into it, and I don't know. To me, people just get mad at things for no reason sometimes. Like I just think people get mad and they just want to have an opinion and they want to be, frustrated about something. People didn't like the 7-1 like you did. So I liked both of them. I thought they were both very cool in their own sort of way. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. But did you have any points?
Well, I was going to say, I actually understand what you're saying in terms of having a bigger scoreboard because people are watching it on screens and in not a conventional sitting in your couch watching it on telly format. So I get that. But still, I think it's still too big.
Well, it's just
that's just my opinion.
The blogs and the Instagrams and everyone was just like, "Oh, this is trash. This is trash." But like, it's always the 1% of the minority of kind of loud, annoyed people that always get the attention. And I don't know, it is what it is. Come middle of the year, no one's going to care anymore. They just want to see the score. Like that's about it. So I guess going back to what we were talking about with the actual game that was happening was I do like to put up the worm, which kind of gives you a nice little, summary of the game. It's not everything. It's not, completely black and white. There's still some grey areas when it comes to football. But as you can see, kind of it was a bit of a tussle towards the first quarter. Second quarter, Hawks sort of pulled away a bit. Swans brought it back. And then the Hawks eventually just came too good and they just pushed forward at the end there, and they took the goods by 20 points. So overall, hot take, it's just Hawks. It's one game. I can't really give them. I will give them credit. They did play very well, but I'm not going to be like I'm not going to take back my entire take, which was earlier in the preseason when I had them in 11th, I think. So
both these teams are going to do well, so it's no stress. There's no point getting too bogged down on this result.
So the other game that happened on the other side of Sydney, in Western Sydney, was the GWS Giants versus the Collingwood Magpies. And as you can see, 104-52 was the final score, with the Giants having one better goal than their behind total, which they were very efficient in front of goal, but actually their inside 50s were very similar, and the Pies were just woeful in front of goal, 6 goals to 16 points, and 52 was their total. This one was played at a beautiful sunny afternoon on Sunday when I was sitting at home watching it bucket and getting our power cut off just after the game finished. But that was an interesting time. This game was, I feel like it had a little bit of a tight moment, but in the end, Giants just too good. Like, what was your prediction? Remember, you said my Hawks. I said the Hawks were going to be bad, and I'm looking stupid. What was your prediction about the Giants again?
Well, I did say the Giants would be one of those teams that were definitely on the fringes of making top 8. I don't think they're going to have a shocking season, but I was definitely shocked by how poor Collingwood was. The fact that, like, the difference between 29 and 22 scoring shots total, like, you can look at that and be like, it's tight-ish, but the scoreboard is the only stat that matters. And the fact that Collingwood was so wasteful in front of goal, they've got really no one to blame but themselves. But the key ingredient here is, everyone talks about in the media, this is the thing that the Giants market themselves so heavily on, is that orange tsunami.
Yeah.
And when the Giants get that free-flowing football from half back through the midfield, down the corridor, and hit their tall targets, or if Toby Green's down there, picking up the crumbs, like, they can be a very deadly team. So I wasn't surprised that the Giants were able to put something together and score goals. That wasn't what was surprising to me. It was more so Collingwood. They looked unfit. They looked lethargic.
Old.
They looked slow. They looked old. It was. I was genuinely shocked that they came to opening round and this looked to them like a friendly, like they were still getting match fitness up. Like that. If I was a Collingwood fan, I'd be furious. That to me is not acceptable. Seeing Nick Dacos lie around on the floor, getting his legs bloody touched by all the bloody masseuses that work at the Collingwood Football Club for so long in opening round, I just think is unacceptable. And he's supposed to be a young fella that's super fit and Brownlow medal worthy. So that was what shocked me the most by the Magpies, because they've got a lot of good players. Mm-hmm. Yes, they're one of the oldest squads in the comp, but to lose by that scoreline is not good enough. I'm not surprised.
It kind of showed that well, I don't think they can use any excuse from last year, whether, you know, they had a premiership hangover and all that sort of thing. They didn't even make the finals last year. Like, there's no excuse for them not being ready for this game. I know there was perhaps some, I guess, with the cyclone kind of coming at its initial point, it was sort of bearing down on a little bit further south, and then it kind of made a bit of a hook turn towards Brisbane. So there might have been some sort of, you know, conjecture around that. But yeah, no excuse. And I think if you're a Collingwood fan, you'd be absolutely ropeable at them. You would not be happy with this at all. And I think the Giants fans should be super happy, you know, defending home ground, playing against a team that everyone thought was going to be good.
Their home ground is always empty, bro. It's the opening game of the season. They couldn't sell it out. I understand they had the lowest memberships in the comp, but it's shameful.
But they're passionate.
The fact
that
they didn't sell out a semi-final last year still is embarrassing to me. So and they got smashed in a grand final a couple years ago, which I still fucking hate. Oh man, I just don't like the Giants.
All right. Hot take. Someone doesn't like the Giants. This was the worm, as I said, kind of giving you a little bit of a tussle in the first quarter, pulling away, coming back a little bit in the second quarter with the Pies, and then the Giants just too good, basically doubled up their score. This was a bit of a rollicking one. I think one talking point that has also come out of this game was the two coaches on the sideline, which was Adam Kingsley and Craig McRae, having a little bit of a verbal stoush. You know, they're actually like good friends. Like, it wasn't really anything serious, but the AFL was going to kind of crack down on that sort of stuff, especially after what happened with Ken Hinkley last year, abusing a Hawthorn player, basically. They've cut down on that player-coach interaction, especially because they both coach from the sidelines, as Ken Hinkley does as well. So I think they're going to rightly kind of cut down on that, but I don't think there was any malice in it, and I don't think it kind of spilled over into anything more than it should have been. But yeah, I think it was a good game. Giants always plays an exciting brand of football. Did you have any final thoughts on this one, Caleb?
No, I was going to say, I'm just surprised that the Magpies didn't put up a four-quarter performance.
Yeah.
And the Swans and the Hawks game was definitely more entertaining as a neutral.
Yeah.
And looking forward to next week with more footy.
Well, we're going to have a little bit of a... I'm just going to pause there because I didn't hide. Should I hide them or just show it all at once? What do you reckon?
You can show it all at once if you want.
Show it all at once. All right. So to kind of wrap up this round, what we're going to be doing throughout the season is together we're kind of going to give a 3-vote, 2-vote, 1-vote in a Brownlow kind of way. As a collective, we're going to think about who was the best player of the round, who was the second best, and who was the third best, and give them each 3, 2, 1. This round, was only 2 games, obviously, so it was sort of hard to kind of narrow it down. I think as we go further along, when we have 9 games, I think there's going to be clearly a standout, especially if you look at kind of some of the games. There's going to be a few clear standouts, but the ones that we kind of thought were going to be worthy of votes this round for opening round is number 3, Will Day had 3 votes for the Hawks, number 2, Sam Taylor for the Giants, and number 1, Nick Blakey for the Swans. Will Day was amazing for the Hawks. He kind of kickstarted the whole push at the start of the game. I don't want to call it the brown wave. You said the orange tsunami, and I was like, the brown wave? Does that kind of work? Anyway, the Hawks, he kind of ignited them at the start there. Sam Taylor was amazing down back, taking a few absolute hangers. He's going to be one of the best, continue to be one of the best backs in the comp. And Nick Blakey, who, yes, played on a losing side, but I thought played really well in his role down back there. There was a really funny clip from that Sydney game because his nickname is the Lizard. There was a couple of guys all in those lizard costumes. I thought that was hilarious. That was pretty cool. What did you think about that one?
No, well, I'll say I love all types of fan engagement, and having a nickname like that and having fans that get on board. It's like the Hawks with all the magician hats and stuff.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. So I'm all for it.
Well, we have the... so 3 votes here, and then we'll kind of continue and carry on towards the end of the season so that you can kind of, I suppose, have a bit of... It's not going to be an exact like Brownlow comparison. I just think it's going to be kind of our own way of keeping track of who's been good throughout the season. So we'll see how that one goes. But to kind of round off, I kind of want to just have a look at some of the upcoming games in the schedule. So we've obviously got, it's now called round 1. We're back to the start. We've got Richmond and Carlton, which we talked about before. I think this one's pretty obvious as to who is going to win. Do you have any contrary opinions to mine, Caleb?
No, I don't know. Richmond might get up there. They might do all right.
Yeah, sure. I think if they won, it would probably be one of the most shocking results in AFL history. That would be pretty incredible if Richmond won that game. But yeah, this is going to be 6:30 our time, 7:30 Victorian time on Thursday. So only a couple of days. I do love the Thursday games. Nice quick turnaround. We're going to have Hawthorn and Essendon, which will be a great game on Friday night. That's going to be epic. I think anytime Hawthorn's in like prime time, I think they're going to be an absolute draw, and especially playing against a team like Essendon, who can be hot and cold. It's going to be an interesting one. We have Geelong and Freo on Saturday at GMHBA Stadium. Any thoughts on either of those two? I didn't ask you, sorry. Hawks or Essendon or Geelong and Freo?
No particular thoughts. I was going to say, I'm sure there'll be plenty of exciting football between all these teams. So
yeah, the Geelong game, I think they're pretty happy to have not made the trip to Queensland and had to fight through the cyclone and everything. They didn't even fly up here. The call was made pretty early on the Tuesday afternoon, I think, or Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday, I think it was made. So, yeah, it was good that they didn't come, but they've now got Freo coming to their house, and I think that Geelong playing at home Saturday, Arvo, it's going to be a great spectacle. At the SCG, Sydney, 2 back-to-back games. We have the Brisbane Lions playing them 3:15 p.m, which, I don't know, it's kind of fitting that the grand final rematch happens as the Lions' first game. It's kind of a benchmark, perhaps, of where they are from last year. So, and Sydney are obviously going to want to avenge that opening round loss, so that's going to be a very good game. Are you excited for this one, Caleb?
Of course.
Is the sky blue?
I hope so.
Yeah, like, of course you're excited. I'm excited for it. Yeah, this is going to be an epic game. Lions are going to have obviously a big hole with Joe Danaher missing, but I think that we're going to be fit and firing and ready to go. Obviously, at the start of the season, everyone's looking very good in the comp, so it's going to be an exciting game. Next one is Western Bulldogs and North Melbourne. Any thoughts on who's going to win that one, Caleb?
Oh, the Doggies will win comfortably.
Doggies at Marvel, even though they're missing basically half their team. They're missing a lot of key players. Waitman, Bontempelli, all of those, like their midfield is pretty decimated. So this, I feel like, could be an upset. This could be a Kangas kick him in the mouth and just, run one over. So I'm just saying.
Okay.
Just saying.
Early prediction.
Collingwood and Port Saturday afternoon at the MCG. I think this one is going to be a very good game too. Any thoughts on who's going to win this one, Caleb?
I don't know. Port Adelaide definitely should perform well.
Yeah.
And I'd expect more from Collingwood bouncing back. So I don't know, but I reckon it'll be a close one.
This is one that I think that Collingwood's going to run away with. I'm sorry. I just think that they're playing their first game at home. They're playing they just played on Sunday, so it's a 6-day turnaround for them. And I think that they're going to want to almost have revenge for that poor performance. And I think that playing against Port, who is a lot of people tipping to fall down a little bit this year, I think that Collingwood will just run away with this MCG Saturday night. It's going to be a great spectacle. I think Collingwood wins that one. We've got the Crows and the Saints at Adelaide Oval, the home opener for the Adelaide Crows under the kind of new logo, new era kind of feel. Feels like the Crows have got some rejuvenation coming, and then I think the opposite can be said for the Saints, unfortunately. So I'm going to tip the Crows for that one. What do you think?
Yeah, I reckon the Crows will get up as well.
Crows, yeah. I think we're both on alignment there. We've got Melbourne and GWS coming up on Sunday afternoon as well at the MCG. I think that this is going to be somewhat tighter than people think. I think GWS will still win, but Melbourne not looking good for them this season. Although, I don't know, they could surprise, but I feel that everyone's going to say that Melbourne's not going to be great this year. So GWS for that one. Not by a lot, though. And then we have the last game, which was the West Coast Eagles and the Gold Coast Football Club at Optus Stadium on Sunday. The twilight game, the traditional kind
of the Suns.
Perth. Yeah, gosh. Yeah, I mean, I don't like the Eagles either, so both these teams can lose and I don't care. So I think that this game is going to be interesting. I think a lot of people are going to be watching the Gold Coast with interest. Eagles, can they take that next step? I don't think they can, so I think I'm going to tip the Gold Coast for this one. So here we are. We're at the start. It feels like it's the start of the season again. You know, like I feel like we would have had more of an idea that it was the start of the season if we had 4 games for opening round. But the fact we only had 2, it's a bit like, oh, okay, well that happened. You know,
opening round 2025 was certainly anticlimactic.
It was anticlimactic. So let's hope it's not a omen for the rest of the season. I think it's going to be a cracking season. I'm excited. Let's get rid of these clouds that I'm looking at overhead. Let's get rid of this rain. I hope you didn't get too battered while you were down there. You live a little bit further south than me, so the south point of Brisbane and Gold Coast was kind of where everything was getting smashed. So I hope you didn't get anything too bad over there.
No, I was very fortunate where I live. Didn't get hit too badly at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's a lot less than people were hoping. Well, when they're hoping, it's a lot less than people were predicting. I think that's a good thing. It can't just be like, you know, everyone's sandbagged and you're like, oh, well, what was the point of that? Well, if it was bad, you really did need those sandbags. So everyone kind of had the time to prepare, and I think that they didn't really need too much of that preparation. So that's good. Happy with that. That's a little bit of a roundup from 2 Brisbane AFL fans in the epicenter of the AFL world, which was opening round and Victoria can now catch up for round 1. So that's pretty much us for episode 3 of the Golders AFL. Did you have any final remarks before we signed off, Caleb?
No, all good, Harry.
We will see you next week for a full slate of games. This is going to be an epic season. Thank you so much to everyone. Please hit subscribe. Please like the video. It does help the channel grow, and recommend to any of your other friends who are AFL fans. It's going to be a great season. Thank you very much. Have a good day.